We bring in Rick Bonnell from the Charlotte Observer. And Rick, my first question to you is this. Tuesday on the beat, you basically said that George Pistolas, who used to be with the Houston Rockets, used to be an executive with the Houston Rockets, he was creating a group that would buy the Charlotte Bobcats. And you actually said on the beat that you thought he was in the lead. So what happened in the last couple of days that enabled Michael Jordan to take controlling interest of the team?
Actually, I think you answered that question yourself. I'm not sure that I believe that Jordan's going to own 100% of the team when all this is said and done. But from all the reporting we've done, Jordan at the last minute really stepped up dramatically in what he was personally willing to do to buy this. And in the absence of that, today George Pistolas would be running the would be the guy. His group would have been awarded the opportunity to buy this team. There's no question of that.
I understand. Do we know the commitment? Obviously none of the details have been disclosed. But Rick, obviously you're a journalist. Your job is to dig. Do you know what the investment is for Michael Jordan to buy the Bobcats?
No, I don't know exactly what it is, but I will tell you this: Michael has a reputation for a long time, and if you can get away with what I'm about to say, more power to you, of being an other people's money kind of guy. It's my impression that in this particular case, like I said, what put this over the top was in the last 48 hours of this process, he was willing to do a lot as far as risking his own personal net worth to make that work. And I think that was the trump. The other thing to keep in mind about this is if you look at the statements that David Stern has made, including the one you read, it's very obvious that David wanted this to happen. When before they ever start vetting somebody, when the commissioner puts out a statement with terms like expedited approval process, that tells me that there isn't going to be a whole lot of vetting to do. That this is pretty much settled. It's not like there's going to be some kind of floor fight that's going to keep the other 29 owners from thinking this is a good idea.
Hey, Rick, Matt Harpring here. How you doing?
Hey, Matt, how are you?
Very good. Hey, I'm interested to think what you think, what kind of owner Michael Jordan will be. Will he be an owner that's going to spend the money, maybe be over the cap, or is he going to be one of these owners that will not spend the money and kind of always be under the cap? In your speculation, where do you think he's going to lie?
I'm glad you asked me that. Jordan, I think some of this is not nearly as much about what Jordan will do as what the market size and the circumstances cause him to do. And here's what I mean. They're already spending within $1 million of the luxury tax threshold. Michael told me with adamance at the beginning of this season that there would be no justification for going over to luxury tax in this kind of a market where even if you're not spending any tax dollars, you know that you're going to lose money trying to build a playoff team right now. My point is, they're not being cheap. They haven't always made the greatest decisions with what they do with the money they're spending, but they're already at that place where most teams are, which is just below that tax threshold, and I have no reason to think that that's going to change. Where I do think this is kind of interesting, and Matt, I'm curious what you think about this, is it's not often in Major League sports that the guy who is the basketball guy is also, in the end of the day, responsible for whether this team is in the black or the red. I'll be real curious to see whether he's willing to take a more open role in the marketing of this team now that at the end of the day, if there are losses, he's covering them and not Bob Johnson.
Can I answer?
Go ahead.
Obviously. Yeah. So I feel like this is going to be an interesting situation because Michael Jordan, the best basketball player that's ever played, his value, when you start talking about players and being like, are they going to be max players or not? Does he think they're going to be worth the money that they deserve in today's market, or is he going to be an owner that says, okay, this guy in the market demands $9-10 million, but hey, I know that this guy is not that good. Maybe he's a $4 or $5 million guy. I mean, that's kind of the question of what kind of owner he's going to be, I think.
I think that there's very much I think he's going to put his personal stamp on those issues. A question that's kind of tangential to the one you're posing that I think is really interesting is Michael has been somewhat sporadic as far as what he is personally willing to do to scout players in anticipation of drafts and such. He said from the start, I'm not the general manager and I'm not an employee of this team. I've been asked to oversee basketball operations with his people in place. what I'd like to know, what I'll find real interesting is, now that, as I said, it's his skin in the game, I'll be curious if he's around a whole lot more for things like pre-draft workouts. One of the things that was so cool about Jerry West is, he's the logo. Jerry never thought he was too good to be in a metal folding chair at a Division II school to find out whether so-and-so can play. I hope that now that Michael has his own skin at the game, that he'll be a whole lot more interested in spending that kind of time making sure that these decisions are made in a real adamant, a real precise way.
Rick, my question is, with Michael taking over, how does this affect, or how does this help the city of Charlotte? I mean, is the crowd, are they going to get more people, more consistency as far as the attendance? Is that going to help knowing that the team is there, Michael's in charge? And I guess that's where some of the marketing will come into place. Do you think his effect or his appeal, or will he make personal appearances to season ticket holders or anything like that maybe will help the overall attendance?
Eric, he's been very reluctant to do that kind of stuff, and I respect that. If he wants to say, my problem is the product, not the marketing, I think that's a personal choice that I really respect. But, one other thing that I think is kind of runs up against what you were asking me is, one of the things this does, by Jordan sticking around, is it makes Larry Brown a whole lot more interested in staying around. And Eric, you're the perfect person to push, to pass this opinion on. I think, Larry is never going to play a minute in a Bobcats uniform, but he is clearly the single biggest asset ever in the 5-year franchise's history. Keeping Larry in place, happy, feeling appreciated, feeling like people are listening to him is the single smartest thing that this franchise can do to keep going forward.
Rick, one more question for you, and I apologize to this gentleman if I mispronounce his name. Bobcats minority owner Felix Sabates is saying that he thinks that Michael Jordan making his home in Charlotte is the key to making this work for him. Sabates said, quote, if Michael doesn't do that, he's wasted a lot of money. But Michael is pretty smart, and Michael's got some pretty good advisors. He didn't get to where he is by being dumb. Sabates went on to say, this is the biggest investment of his life. He can have 19,000 people at every game. It's up to him. Your thoughts on that?
I think that this is a town where you go along by getting along. It's a town of Southern manners. The Bobcats ownership will always be compared to Jerry Richardson of the Carolina Panthers, who is in a golf cart every Sunday morning, going from tailgate party to tailgate party, making his customers feel welcome. I don't think that Michael needs to take an exactly parallel path, but I think it's important that people think that Michael Jordan is of this community. And, and that's, it's not entirely his fault. The problem was Bob Johnson didn't want to live here, and a lot of people felt like Johnson, and to some extent Jordan too, were just parachuting in occasionally, between the Caribbean and New York City, and it made people feel a little uncomfortable. I don't think that's the only reason people don't attend games, but I do think it's a perception issue here.
Rick, we really appreciate the time and the insights, and obviously you're on this story. We'll be watching and we will be reading. Thank you very much, Rick. Enjoy the rest of your weekend.